All right, my name is Gereon Hermkes, and I would like to talk about how Scrum Scale has helped us solve a solution that a lot of high-growth organizations are facing. And it's a very vicious problem because it affects them when they're actually supposed to take off. So imagine for a moment a startup. At the beginning of a startup, all the energy is focused on finding a product market fit. So we want to build a product that customers actually want and pay money for, and we need to be able to produce it at a price that actually turns a profit for us. So there's this trying of finding a product market fit, and if we don't succeed at the beginning, we'll pivot, we'll try again. Hopefully, we'll find a solution before the funding runs out, but there's a lot of energy going into that. So most of the times, if that succeeds, and this isn't always the case, people, founders think that they are now ready to go and that they have almost achieved the success. But that's a bit too fast, because then a really critical situation comes into place. And for me, there's an image of a rocket on a launch pad always coming up, because it takes a lot of energy to build a rocket and put it on a launch pad. And when you have a rocket on the launch pad, it's not going to be an experiment anymore. You actually need that rocket to successfully launch into space at that point of time. But maybe some of you know these old tests of rockets. When the rocket would be on the launch pad, it would start and it would go up, but then it seemed to hang in the air for a second and then slowly come back down, land back at the launch pad, and what would happen then? It would explode. It would tip over and it would explode, and then like all the effort that has been invested would be lost. And this is kind of the same that happens to a lot of startups, a lot of high growth companies, exactly at the moment when you're thinking, okay, I just push the button and the rocket takes off. And we are going to look at one of these cases, and one of my clients was in that situation. The founders were really smart guys, and they built a really nice business model, so the product market fit. There's a big check behind it. And they actually did something more. They built a really good culture for the company that was based on trust and cooperation. So they actually went farther than most founders do. And of course, when there's success, there's growth, and that often means that a lot of new employees are joining the company, and this is where the problems tend to start, because the cultural cohesion in the company will break down if a lot of people join the company in a very short time frame. And of course, what happens? Sales stalled, margins evaporated, and people started leaving the company. And these were actually the people that helped put the rocket on the launch pad. So they were the ones that were very creative and that got the company to where it was supposed to go. There's actually, this is like a standard problem in business administration. There are 3 solutions for it. First, you don't grow, which doesn't make sense in a lot of contexts. And if you have a good product, you want to bring it out to the world. The second one is you just tolerate the chaos, which can make sense like for a startup if it just wants to do a land grab. But for me, it's always problematic because it's kind of like peeing your own pants. It might feel good for a little while, but you sooner or later have to address the problem. And thirdly, there's what I call the process trap, which is if you have chaos, then somebody will eventually have the idea, okay, let's do a lot of procedures, standard operating protocols and processes. And this is a trap because it will feel good if you compare it to the chaos that is already happening right now. But it's a trap because it's going to transform the DNA of the company. Instead of people that are adaptive, that try to find new solutions, that got the rocket started, the building of the rocket started, you're going to attract other people that are more focused on being successful at actually going through the standard operating procedures. And this is going to work well for a long time, but at a certain point of time, an external shock will happen and the company will not be as able to adapt. So I'm proposing a 4th solution, and that is using Scrum at Scale to solve this problem. Looking at this concrete case study, how did we know that culture was actually the culprit? There were 4 things that we observed. One is high latency. It took a long time to get answers from the management, and this was really a problem because the people that are out with the customers need a quick reaction time in order to clinch deals. There was a lack of cooperation. I think most people have seen that as soon as a company grows, there tend to be some groups that rival with each other. And it wasn't actually that bad with this customer, but it still had an effect. There was a sense of helplessness. You could see that some people are asked to be reassigned to different managers, and also that people left, like I said before. And most importantly, and what we're going to focus on even more, is that Einheit was lost. So people didn't have a common outlook on stuff anymore. And I would like to zoom in a little bit on this Einheit lost. So this is Einheit is a German word originally, but that's widely used by the United States military right now. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to just read quickly through the definition that the Marine Corps uses. So what you'll note is that they describe it as a implicit communication. I would actually go farther and say it's almost telepathy. And I know this is a big claim, but I posit that you have had this kind of Einheit with people before. So for example, people tend to have it with their spouse. They tend to have it with very close colleagues. Or for example, your best friend in junior high. So you can often see it if there's a conflict with a third party. So for example, if you remember back in junior high and the bully is coming along, you shouldn't have been the bully in that case, but if the bully comes along, you tend to have a feeling for how the other person, your buddy, is going to react. You know if they're going to react aggressively, if they're going to go back and concede. So you know how they are going to think, how they're going to react, and even more, they know how you expect them to react. So there's almost like a unity of thought in that situation. And this is really important because it solves a lot of these communication problems and cultural problems. And how did we achieve that? Well, we introduced the Scrum at Scale pattern of the Scale Daily Scrum because it's a method of introducing Einheit without raising a lot of resistance. We did that by focusing on familiarity and with focusing on learning from each other. And an important part of that was that the leader, the manager of our group, was in that call, and he exhibited and showed vulnerability to a certain degree, of course, but it's really a difference if you know the manager is somewhere far away, he's kind of like the general on the hill somewhere, and you don't really have a connection to him, or if through the SDS, every day you're standing up together with him or you're on a call with him and you notice that he actually is a human being as well. He has the same problems and he's openly sharing them with you. And so you see, well, he's actually in the trenches with me, maybe not right next to me, but he's having some issues. And you start to align with what his wishes are, what his problems are, and you see him as a more of a human being. And so this worked quite well, and people aligned rather quickly around it. And this also had the positive side effect that once you have the Scale Daily Scrum in place, other artifacts, other patterns from Scrum at Scale you almost flow naturally into them, because suddenly you have a transformation backlog, there's demands for more training, etc., and then you can start an agile practice, etc., etc. So I would really recommend this if you want to have a low resistance entry into the system. This quote is really summing it all up for me. It's by Colonel Mike Wiley, and he said, "I did not want to control my Marines, I wanted to unleash them on the enemy," and this is really it. We want to get away from the command and control, yet we still need people to know what they have to do at the point of contact, because they can't always call back home. So this is really how you do it, by using Einheit and implementing it via the SDS. So the results were really staggering in my view. You can just take a quick look at them. But what was most interesting for me is that, one, as is usual with Scrum, it was a little change, but it had a large effect. And two, I've been in this situation many times before because I worked a lot in startups, and it has always failed in the past. And so my take is you should use Scrum at Scale to do it. Don't stay a small company, don't fall into the process trap, and don't pee your own pants. Use Scrum at Scale in order to scale the culture. Thank you. Okay, any questions?
Did the organization know that you were implementing Scrum at Scale, or did you just start by suggesting a pattern or a practice in the Scale Daily Scrum and kind of let it naturally or organically emerge?
Yeah, we let it emerge naturally. I talked to my boss about it, who is the boss of this group. And this is why I think it's such an interesting pattern to start with, because it's very natural. There's not a lot of resistance, and you can easily flow into more things. So yeah, we started the bubble from the bottom up.